Morning to everybody joining us for this session. Really excited to be here. This session is When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a Comms Hero, and hopefully surrounded by loads of comms heroes today with loads of great ideas about how we inspire the next generation. This session was inspired from a conversation started between Asif and Katrina Wilcox, who's on the panel today, when they were recording a Comms Hero podcast. And through their discussion, they spoke about, well, how do we breed the next generation of comms heroes? And from my perspective, we're an industry of people, not machines. And so the health and the effectiveness of the comms sector only works if we have a great pipeline of talent to fuel what we do. So the question to everybody today is, how do we as comms heroes pass on our superpowers and inspire the next generation of talent? It's a question I'm going to ask to our panelists today, and really pleased to be joined by Katrina Wilcox, Lewis Williams, Michael Lowdon and Emily Clark, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a second as they join us. But you're all panelists today, so a bit of work for everybody really, and welcome your questions to the panel, but also your ideas you might have. The five of us on the panel, we're going to give our thoughts, but actually this is a team sport. Inspiring the next generation of talent is a team sport, so really want to get your ideas today. Based on your own experience and insights. So before I invite the panelists to share their own perspectives, I just wanted to start the thinking with my own thoughts. And for context, I've been working in comms for over 25 years. I know you guys are going to be shocked. I'm sure I don't look that old. Of course I do. But I didn't grow up wanting to be a comms hero. In fact, I'm really disappointed today I'm not here for civil engineer heroes, because when I was at school, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a civil engineer, and I actually wanted to be in the army. But as I pursued that dream, I found out that the civil engineering bit of the army didn't really select women for roles. In fact, I was told they won't take you, you're a woman. So I reset my sights on working within the logistics sector of the army, but then unfortunately I got medically discharged. So how did I move into comms? Well, like a lot of people, I had no clue what was involved. And when I was considering my future choices, someone suggested I might have the right skill mix, confidence in communications, good writing skills, creativity. And I don't think it was to do with my brother who worked on the Daily Mirror. I don't think they suggested I got into comms just because they wanted my media contacts, but certainly my brother's experience working on a national newspaper did give me some context. So fast forward on, over 25 years later, I've worked in-house in a London agency, in a regional agency, for a charity, and as a freelancer. And now I've been running my own business, Spotted Communications, for about 12 years. So I've had a lot of experience talking to next generation talent and seeing some fantastic people come through the doors. And I know, running a fast-growing agency, how difficult it is to find the right talent. So I'm so aligned to this mission of how we inspire the next generation. And when we look at people, what gets people out of bed, feeling a sense of purpose is really important to us. When I jump out of bed this morning, it really is about working with the young guys and seeing them grow and develop. And we all have different reasons. Some of us, it's about paying the bills, and some of it is about many different factors. But it's clear in the working world these days, the expectation that a job is much more about purpose than paying the bills. And purpose really drives a lot of, it acts like as a catalyst to inspire people in the career choices they make. So before we dive into the panel piece, I just wanted to really highlight a really interesting perspective around the purpose of comms. And it starts with a bit of a history lesson. So next year, the CIPR celebrates 75 years. And if you're good at maths, you'll work out that means that the dawn of the PR industry was going back to 1948. And that's really significant, because think back to 1948, and I'm sure many of us weren't actually there, but you'll hear from families and studying in history that the world and our society was decimated as a consequence of the Second World War, and society was still recovering. And as a society, we needed to really jumpstart the economy. Now, the impact of communications really started to be evident in the war. We've all seen those wartime comms posters. Some of them were kind of very specific, dig up the fields and do all sorts of things. Some of them were a bit more nudge tactics. But the point is, the recognition for the role of communications really started, the penny started to drop as a consequence of the war. So then, as society looks in the post-war era, how we jumpstart the economy and get things moving, communications was really recognised as that bridge to change. So if you want to go from here to there, communications is the bridge that enables that. And that's where communications and the role of communications practitioners really started to be recognised. And that's why the Institute of Public Relations started to become a thing. There started to be many communications professionals out there, and recognition for communications really started to be evident. And I guess if we fast forward now to our experience only a couple of years ago, through COVID, communications again was that bridge when suddenly organizations were making massive change, and we needed to communicate to our stakeholders what was happening, and the recognition of communications really was elevated. There's empirical data that showed communications was really recognized by corporate suites and C-suites. So as we inspire the next generation of talent, I think the purpose piece is really important, because we're facing choppy times now. And I'm sure if you went back 10 years, 20 years, there's all that, we never look ahead and just see a golden sunshine. There's always ways as a society we need to support and address challenges. And as we look at communications professionals, how can I make a contribution to the world? I think it's really important when we frame communications that we can put the context that we have the power to change the world through communications, because change doesn't happen on its own. It only happens if you help communicate it. So that's my take. If that's how I would sell communications to the next generation talent, in fact, sell it to all of us all here today when we think about jumping out of bed on a Monday morning after a wonderful weekend and you think, oh, I've got to do some work today. Today, we can change the world through our communications, and that's a really inspiring thought that we can have as we inspire the next generation of talent, and also, in our own lives. So with that in mind, I'd like to throw it over to the panel. But before we do, I just wanted to mention everybody here today's got a little job to do, and start with a little bit of vote. So I might look to my glamorous assistants to help with that. And just as a bit of a kind of acid test, I mentioned that I fell into communications, wasn't something I planned to do. Some of the guys on the panel are way more qualified than me and actively chose to pursue in communications. But I'd love to just take a quick vote. As you sit here today, did you get into communications because you fell into it, or if it was an active choice? And let's see what the representative group here today, what that looks like. So I don't know how you do the vote. I'm in the hands of Kate here, who's put it up. I guess we all do it, don't we? So I'm going to click that I fell into it and vote, and let's see how it looks. That's so exciting. It's like Eurovision, isn't it? So just a bit of a gut feel here, finger in the air piece. So there's a good majority of here that fell into it rather than an active choice. And that shows us how important this session is today, and shows us how important it is as people working in the industry. Our industry can't survive on the off chance that people might meet someone down the pub who suggests come and work in comms. We need to drive that active choice so that we can keep fueling the next generation of talent. So that sets a really lovely scene for what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start by inviting Katrina to jump in. So Katrina is head of marketing at Housing 21. She also very kindly helps with a lot of CIPR activity in the Midlands, part of the Midlands Committee. So Katrina, can we start with how you got into the sector? I don't know your individual vote, if you fell into it or if it was an active choice, but what's your perspective on this?
So morning, everybody, and thanks for that introduction, Rachel. And I think the power to change the world, wow, if we've all got that, what a career aspiration. So wouldn't it be great if people like school, college age just thought, I want to be a communicator because I want to have the power to change the world. And I think that's something for us all to hold on to. For me personally, I was always quite academic at school. So, everybody used to say to me, oh, why don't you become a doctor or a lawyer or a vet or a teacher, join the police? So all those kind of things. And I tried. I did work experience in a vet. I did work experience with a solicitor. And I was trying all these things when I was kind of, early mid-teens. And I didn't really like any of them. So I was kind of just a bit, well, what do I do? I knew I loved language, always loved English, loved storytelling, loved communicating, loved talking. So always used to get told off for talking too much. So just carried on doing communications. So I did A-levels in German, English and politics, because they all involved quite a lot of communicating. but still just kind of fell into communications, didn't really know that that was an option. Did a degree, went to university, and then found it. So I started off in manufacturing, so in marketing, and again really enjoyed it, but then realized I wanted to do something a bit more purpose driven. So went and worked in healthcare, education, and now I'm in housing and absolutely love it. But I had no idea you could get a career in communicating, making videos, writing, editing, storytelling, and same with my team. So I know we're all really passionate about it. But when I talk to other people about what I do, friends, children, a lot of the time they go, wow, but that's amazing. You get to do social media, make videos, communicate, all that kind of stuff. And I just think, wouldn't it be great if when people are at school, college age, like I was, that people could aspire to go into comms and to be comms heroes, and know the pathway to choose. And I think lots of us probably take a little bit longer getting here. Whereas if we knew that it was a real career option, if we knew what the options were, if we knew that we could get quite reasonable salaries and career opportunities, it might be easier to persuade our parents, friends, families that actually a career in comms is really, really worth having. And here I am, and I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, it'd be good to hear about how other people got into it as well.
And what do you see in your role, in a senior role? You're obviously involved in recruitment and sort of reaching out to bring people into the sector. What do you think that we can do to increase our pipeline, rather than just going through the traditional routes of, because if you phone up, if you recruit through a recruiter, then you're expecting that people already have made that active choice. So how do we break down the barriers and expand the diversity of people coming into our sector?
I've listened to a few podcasts on it. There was quite a good marketing week one recently, about people just getting back out there. So actually thinking about it, if I could maybe go back to my school or college and just, talk to the business studies students, talk to the English students, just probably about 5-6 years ago, I was invited to do a presentation to a group of students from Birmingham. So inner city Birmingham colleges, didn't really know what they were doing, or what they were going to do long term. And so I went and spoke to them about the career that I was, embarking on and having. And at the end of it, I had a queue of people wanting to, come and talk to me about the different options available. And we were offering apprenticeships at the time. So again, out of that group of people, we managed to secure a new apprentice. And again, she went off to have a great career in marketing and communications. But she said when she came to that day, she had no idea what she wanted to do as a career. She went along with her dad because, again, he was quite worried that she didn't really know what she wanted to do as a career. And by the end of it, she was so motivated and inspired that, she applied, she was successful. And now, 5-6 years later, she's doing really, really well. So I think for me, if I can do my bit and inspire people and just tell them about it, communicate, tell them the options that, the things that I've been through, but the options that I've got in my team that other people have across, I'm in housing at the moment, across the housing sector, there are so many really interesting and inspiring roles that you can do, but also, in agency side, it's amazing. But again, there's nowhere that people can go, I don't think, to find out about these things. So maybe we can kind of club together as CommsHero, produce some resources, and then go out and deliver them to people that we know, schools, colleges that we're close to, and help create those pathways, provide apprenticeships in our organisations, and maybe start from there.
Well, definitely. And this session is about inspiring what we could all do today to go out and kind of play an active part in this. So definitely hold that thought, everybody, because our little panel group have a bit of an idea to put to you. But I'm going to move on to Lewis now. But I have loads of questions for you, Katrina, especially in relation to apprentices. And perhaps everybody attending the session today might have questions. So do put them in the chat, and we should have time to. So you can ask people their individual experiences, and also we want to hear from you. But I'm just going to look now to Lewis to share his experience. So sorry, I've done it in the wrong order, guys, but let's talk to Lewis now. So Lewis is a Senior Communications Officer for NHS Blood and Transplant. And I was really interested by your own experience, Lewis, because you've done an MA in International Public Relations. So obviously you actively chose to kind of spend time studying, whereas I've got a degree in logistics, which still hasn't hugely helped me in my job. And so tell me, what inspired you to commit to the academic study and prepare you for your career that you've now developed?
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, it's absolutely right that I did undertake my studies as an MA student in PR and communications, but I would say I actually kind of fall in the middle somewhere. I'd undertaken undergrad studies in modern languages, so in French and Spanish. I had a great 4 years kind of studying languages. Pre kind of university, I'd already kind of studied French at school. Always kind of enjoyed languages in general, learning English. But when I came to the end of my time, I didn't really want to kind of go down the traditional routes for a language student, that being a language teacher or to go into translation. I guess what I was looking for was a way that I could use the skills that I knew I had and kind of harness them a bit further. And also, yeah, to kind of just have a bit more further study and understanding of a new industry. And I actually went into my MA in comms with little to no kind of understanding of what that would entail. Thankfully, I really enjoyed it. I remember telling myself at the start, after week one, I'll give it a good week to try and understand, if this is something that I'm going to progress in and if I'll enjoy it. And the rest was history, pardon the pun, but it was just a really great experience for me to actually see the transferable skills that we take from our schooling, when it comes to being able to communicate clearly and concisely and to be able to to tell storytelling. That was something which I would never have guessed was kind of a real kind of fundamental part of the industry that we now all work in. And following undertaking my MA, I was fortunate enough to come across an opportunity provided by the Government Communication Service. So the Government Communication Service, GCS, they offer an internship scheme for graduates, which essentially was a 3-month opportunity for me to see how communications and PR can be applied in a civil service or government practice, and how actually my understanding now is that it's an essential lever of communication within government and the everyday workings of government and everything that we see, that ends up in the news and the headlines, that lots of this kind of is the product of lots of individuals like ourselves working really hard behind the scenes to make sure that the government's priorities and all of the great work that government is doing to make lives easier for people is actually out there in the public eye. So I think a lot of young people, myself included, actually go into the industry willingly or not. Seeing lots of kind of the glamour behind working for brands and working for agencies, but I certainly didn't have an understanding of in-house PR and comms, and that essentially that every kind of organization will have someone to that effect working really hard behind the scenes to tell the story of that brand or organization and what they're trying to deliver as a service.
Mm. And I guess when we talk about purpose, when you work in a role such as yours, where literally communications can literally help save lives, that sense of purpose is really evident. I think it's really important that there doesn't seem to be a two-tier kind of hierarchy in relation to our value as communications professionals, because I feel I'm not saving lives, and I'm pretty bad at first aid as well. So I will be the person on the phone getting help and using my communication skills rather than trying to stumble into something I definitely can't do. But I do feel a sense of purpose in my own business and my own organization, because fundamentally, from an economic and social point of view, we all contribute, because public jobs and public sector has to be fueled by the value that's created from the private sector. So I think sometimes that sense of purpose is so obvious and acute when you're working in the environment you're in. But I think as communications professionals, if you're working with an organization that's a startup business and through the work you're doing, you're helping to drive their growth, create jobs, add to the economy, pay the tax bill that drives everything else. I think it's really important that everybody working comms can understand where they fit within this ecosystem of purpose, because we're all in it together. We're one big team. It's just the way we can articulate our purpose sometimes is really apparent when you're at the sharp end. I mean, this morning watching BBC Breakfast, as a result of communications and someone interviewed on the sofa, they had signatures to the suicide education programme that the Three Dads are champion. They went up through the roof. That was the power of communications at that time. So I think your sense of purpose surely must be really, you must have such moments of pride when the communications you deliver on a day-to-day basis has an impact on people's lives and well-being, I guess.
Absolutely, Rachel. I feel really fortunate in the role that I'm in and the organisation that I work for, that that's really apparent to me kind of on a day-to-day basis. And it is kind of really visible, the impact of the work that I do across comms and the difference it does make to people's lives. But, touching on some of the things you mentioned, I think it's really important for us to remember that most brands and most people in organizations, whether they're comms professionals or not, they'll have an understanding that their organization has something to say. And I think that it's really important for us to kind of nuance and think carefully about how we say those things, and how well they're going to land, and how well they're going to be received. But also, I guess, in particular, certainly in my lifetime, but in the last 20 odd years, where we've got the internet and we've got the interconnected world of social media and things like that, really how we can spark a conversation on the, I guess, what we are delivering as an entity organization, whether it be the product or service we're delivering or the cause we're trying to champion. It's all good and well as making people aware of what we're doing, but how can we actually spark that conversation and potentially lead that conversation, and the impact that that's going to have? Certainly in the organisation that I work in, it's really important for us to, of course, for example, encourage new blood donors to step forward and people to sign up and opt into the organ donation register. But it's also crucial for us to build, to have that education piece, to educate people on the reasons why it's important for them to do that, and to hopefully maintain and keep that longevity of a blood donor, so that someone doesn't just step forward once, for example, to give blood, that they may give as often as they can throughout the year and throughout their, the course of their life. And I just think, that it's really important for us as comms professionals, when we are in those difficult situations in our organizations, to remember that it is going that extra mile to spark that conversation, and that it's really important for us to foster that and encourage that two-way communication that is at the heart of what we do as PR and comms professionals.
I think that's a great point, and as well as talking about how communications has got the power to help organisations impact, as you say, actually, if organisations haven't got the right people or appropriately qualified people to look after communications, the harm and negative impact by misaligned communications has got a huge amounts of consequence to people's lives as well. So having your organisation's reputation in safe hands is definitely a really critical part of this. So thanks, Lewis. Let's move on to Michael now. So if you've got questions for Lewis, please do add them to the chat. But in terms of an organisation's reputation being in safe hands, well, Michael is such a great example of this. As a communications manager for the National Institute of Health and Care Research, again working in the healthcare and health sector, again demonstrates how, I guess, your purpose is so much more acute than others. But also industry in safe hands, you've recently been awarded the Outstanding Young Communicator by the CIPR at the Excellence Awards in June. So absolutely, the future of our industry is in safe hands when we've got cracking people like you, Michael. So I know you came into the industry after studying sports journalism, and I wonder, it's probably not enough time for a quick another poll, but I wonder how many people out there started with aspirations of working in journalism and moved into PR, because I know quite a few of the people I work with, that was their route in. So tell me about your inspiration, Michael, and kind of where you're at and how we can inspire the next generation.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Rachel. It was quite an introduction. So I started in communications around 6 years ago, and I would definitely say that I fall into the category of falling into it. Prior to that, 6 years ago, when I came out of my degree, I was just focused on looking for journalism work. It never crossed my mind about communications. A lot of the time on that degree, it was never said that that was a career path to go down, even on the journalism route. It was more focused towards getting, say, a job at a paper or magazine or BBC, Sky, whatever. So after a few years of trying to search for journalism jobs in the Northeast and elsewhere, I relocated around 2016, and that's where I saw an advert for a communications advisor role. It was at the time at Chesterfield Royal Hospital, and I had no previous kind of, as I say, inspiration to go into comms specifically, but I just looked and saw that a lot of my skills matched what was needed in this role, and then definitely fallen into it there. I think I haven't looked back since, really. It's, well, like Katrina was saying, it's a lot of the skills that I was already doing both at university and prior that were in a career pathway, whether that's editing videos, writing, using a lot of kind of creative software, stuff like that, interviewing people as well. It was stuff I really enjoyed doing, and then found, kind of had my eyes opened really to this world of communications, and specifically within healthcare communications as well. I think, as you mentioned before, it's also 75 years next year that the NHS turns 75. So it's quite running in parallel, really, that there's such a huge world of healthcare comms, which I think I've had my eyes open to and can't really see myself leaving really anytime soon.
Well, it's interesting. So thank you to Kate. She set up the poll just as you started. So that question about who started in journalism moved to comms. So just there's only been a couple of votes actually. So maybe if you can see down on the right, if more of you want to vote, it's oh yeah, thank you. You guys are going for it. Interesting. I mean, if you think journalism is just one bit, and lots of people come into comms also from English and that sort of thing, but it still does dominate kind of the trigger point for people moving to the sector. So really interesting to look at your journey and see where you've ended up. Time's a little bit tight. I've got loads of questions for you, Michael. Might have to have a private chat afterwards. But if I can just now finally look to Emily. Emily's recently joined the industry. She's marketing coordinator at the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I can see from your degree, Emily, that you actively again made that choice to study communications, studying advertising management and digital comms. So hopefully you're living the dream, right? Tell me how you feel about working in the sector, and if you set your heart on it from the very beginning.
Thanks, Rachel. I apologise for my webcam. It's decided that today is the day it will die. So I'm sorry about that. But yes, I sort of would say I kind of was a combination of both again, really. So I did actively choose it in the end, but I feel like I slightly fell into it again because at school it wasn't something that was mentioned or talked about, and it wasn't really an option to me as far as I was aware at that point. So initially I was eyeing up the idea of being a vet or something like that, then realised I was very squeamish. So that was kind of went out the window pretty quickly. But then both my parents had worked in marketing roles. So it wasn't until I was considering a business type degree that they started talking to me about that. And I realised the options and the possibilities of doing a marketing communications type degree. And that's when I selected doing an advertising management and digital communications degree. And then as part of that, I was really fortunate that my degree was very applied, and we got to do lots of live briefs with lots of exciting brands and companies like Volkswagen and Fanta and stuff. And then that was obviously where I decided that, yes, this was definitely the career for me. And out of uni, I started as a marketing assistant for the British Contract Furnishing Association. And then, unfortunately, with the pandemic affecting events and everything, I did take a slight detour into a sales operations role for an electric car company. But I'm now very excited to be back in a marketing role, back doing what I'm passionate about for the CIM. So yeah, that's kind of my journey into it.
Well, congratulations if you're living the dream now, but also that point that you often have a few twists and turns to get into the role. I think that's pretty endemic of a lot of us. And actually, all of those experiences are really important, particularly as you look into the future and then you make future choices. Being able to benchmark what's good and what's bad is really important. Some people come into comms for the first time and think, gosh, is this what it's like? And, we have to be honest that sometimes the pressure, the juggle, working in a 24/7 media environment, sometimes it can feel very different, or you can have very different expectations than when you're in the sterile studying environment. So I think having some experiences in the early stage is really important, so that you can almost like plant your flag and carry on down the direction that's right for you. Because what's amazing about the comms sector is the diversity is fantastic. You can literally save people's lives by working in some roles in comms. You can kind of you could work for a larger company where your focus might be inspiring lots of people. You might become a sector expert. You might specialize in internal communications or other areas. So the diversity of what we do, again, is also another great reason to really bang the drums to people working or considering future career choices, because I think you can shape your career around your own interests and kind of what drives your purpose, really. So great that you've had that experience, I think. I'm just going to look over to the chat. This is quite a tight session with 4 people on the panel. I'm not sure if we've got a bang on hard stop at 10:50, and it's a 35-minute session. But I can just see over in the chat that Andrew Gledhill's talked about experience recruiting a digital marketing apprentice. So echoing some of the experience Katrina had with driving apprentices into the workplace. So Andrew's got some questions. I suggest, with time being tight, it might be good to catch up with Katrina in the networking space, and she might be able to share some specific experience on that. And then Emma's spoken about how do we get comms to be seen as more than just words to schools, rather than what it is with creative storytelling too. That's a great question. And I think my experience is sometimes even how comms is taught differs across different universities. In some universities, it sits within business, and some it sits as a creative piece. So if you go to Birmingham City University, it's taught as part of the School of Media. So there's close alignment with video production, graphic design, and sort of multimedia. Whereas you don't always get that experience. But Michael, with your experience doing your degree, what was your experience in terms of looking at more than just words in that multimedia experience?
So I had this thought this morning actually around ways that we could do it in terms of getting in front of the people who do have those skills. We did have a workshop at one point where we were doing some presenting skills or some broadcast journalism skills with someone from Sky Sports News. Obviously, that was a very engaging session, and it's something that I thought this morning that it could be applied to a comms setting. Really, you could start it off with writing a campaign out, getting a press release, being on site when film's on go, and preparing someone for an interview, and then the fallout of then promoting it via, if it's on television or social media, how you go about that. And you could kind of have a day in the life of a comms professional, really honed in at the people on those courses which have that interest in communications, or whether that's journalism or a media background or like an English writing background. I suppose it could span quite a few different areas.
Yeah, and again talks to the versatility of where you go with the skills you acquire, which is again another reason to grow up and be a comms hero, because you can do so much, so many different pathways. So we're coming to the end of the session, and as we this little panel we regrouped last week to talk about how we could best use the time, and some of it was sharing our experience and hearing from you guys as the audience, but some of it was about that inspiration for, can we use this session? Can we add power to the session, which is just more about us all spending 35 minutes to this morning, but actually can we use this session to all make a pledge to go out there and find solutions for how we inspire the next generation of talent? So what I'd like to do is close the session in a second and like to see some emojis, some hearts. Don't do it yet, save it to the end. But some hearts if you feel that you can go out there and do stuff and bang the drum. You know, if everybody on this session today spoke to 2 people and spoke to them about the passion you have for your career, you know, and those people then went off and did the same, that the power that we can get from this session today could be massive. But before we do that, I can see lots of hearts already, which is lovely. I'd just like to ask everybody from the panel, what's the one pledge that they could make today on how they could inspire the next generation to grow up to be comms heroes? So starting with you, Katrina, what's your pledge?
Okay, slightly scary, but no, I'll pledge to go back to my college and give a talk. And I think, you know, going on what Emma was saying earlier, just give a talk on what I do, you know, the options, what they can do, and the outcomes. Like you said, we can change lives, we can change the world through communications. So I think focusing on the outcomes, the storytelling, and how with the right skills they can really make a difference. So yeah, I will go and do that when the time is right. So within the next 12 months, I would have done that.
That's amazing. So not just speak to 2 people, you're going to speak to a whole college. Amazing. Please shout about Spotted Communications when you're doing that. I need to recruit at the moment. And what about you, Lewis? What could be your pledge?
I'd like to pledge just to kind of retrace my footsteps similar to Katrina and be an advocate for comms and just kind of widen people's understanding of what we do as an industry, which will hopefully diversify and broaden the people that we have coming to work with us in the near future. So albeit, for example, the GCS internship that I did, encouraging more people to apply for that, going back to my university and giving talks, and encouraging just anyone really, if they have any questions, to reach out to me on my social media channels or LinkedIn. Always really happy to help and give my take on things, and hopefully that might help somebody.
Amazing. Let's have a little tour bus. Let's go all around the country, guys. What about you, Michael? Do you want to be on our tour bus, or have you got a different pleasure, a different idea how you could inspire the next generation?
Definitely for being on the tour bus. Like Katrina, I think I would look to engage with the university I was at in the past and see if there's any way that we can get communications on their radar, really, and look to see how we could work together on that. But then personally as well, I think maybe just be a bit more transparent about the work that I'm doing within communications, whether it's a win or a loss, really just show people what we're actually doing rather than people going away thinking, oh yeah, you just work on Twitter and do a poster, like the whole CommsHero narrative of that we're against, really. But just being a bit more open to show people what is going on, and probably social media is the best and quickest way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And Emily, how about yourself?
I think I'd be hopping on the tour bus as well, but maybe heading towards schools more, to try and raise awareness in schools, is that it is an option for you, and that it can be, if you're creative, you could be going into more of a design role, and then there's something for people that are more analytical and more maths based. So I think just raising awareness in schools that this is an option, and it doesn't have to just be you're a doctor or an accountant or something, because I feel like still the options you're given in school are just quite traditional, and there's not always these kind of options mentioned. So I think that would be a good start.
Amazing. Well, I'll conclude it with my pledge. Obviously, this year I'm serving as the president of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, and this plays also to a couple of questions in the chat. I can see Ed Thomas has talked about interest in how you keep developing skills for new starters. And I think, my pledge is to keep banging the drum for our professional body, and not just CIPR, the same for CIM and any professional body. That gives you the learning framework to help take your journey on, and also it helps introduce you to inspiring other people, peers that you can learn from and develop your skills. So I think that sometimes when you come into comms, it may be a lonely place if you're the only person within that organization, but being part of a professional body, a trade association, industry association, that gives you that strength to keep learning and developing so that you can fulfill your future potential. But then also I'll make a pledge that with my CIPR hat on, I'll look at what we can do to inspire the next generation talent at the very early stages. We do a lot at university level, but we need to sow the seeds so much earlier. So I'll explore what we can do in that area, and I will put it on the council agenda for December and spend some time thinking about what the options would be. So I think, given the timing, probably have to wrap up this session. But thank you to everybody from the panel that's shared their thoughts, and thank you for the questions on the side and thoughts that have come forward today. Do catch up with anybody in the networking area or message them if you want to dive deeper into individuals' experiences. But I think the point today was everybody here is at some level comms heroes. I don't want to be arrogant and go, well, I'm definitely a comms hero. I've still got a lot of work to keep developing my skill set, but everyone's here sharing that vision to be a comms hero. And it's not just all about us, it's about inspiring the next generation of talent. So if we can all take it away and do one thing that helps build that talent pipeline, we've done a really good thing today, and we've spent 35 minutes, 40 minutes doing something really amazing. So thanks for joining, thanks for your questions, and look forward to seeing the rest of the stuff across this week. Thanks to the CommsHero team for staging this session the whole week of inspirational content. Thank you very much.